The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species gathered around the crystalline table. Admiral Zextar of the Vorthak Empire tapped his four-clawed fingers impatiently against the surface, his reptilian features twisted in concern. The holographic display floating above the table showed a devastating scene. Entire star systems consumed by an advancing darkness that seemed to devour everything in its path. "The Devourers have taken 17 more systems in the past rotation," announced Counselor Yithara, her translucent blue skin pulsing with distress signals. "At this rate, they'll reach the core worlds within 50 cycles." The assembled aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained peace and order across the known galaxy. Their combined fleets, armed with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes, had been unstoppable. No force had ever challenged their supremacy until now. Admiral Zextar stood, his imposing 8-foot frame casting shadows across the chamber. "Our most advanced warships barely scratch their hull plating. Their bioships regenerate faster than we can damage them. We've lost 60% of our combined fleet trying to slow their advance." A collective shudder ran through the assembly. The Devourers were unlike anything they had encountered before, a hive-minded species that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but dead rock in their wake. Their ships were living creatures the size of moons, capable of self-repair and adaptation. Conventional weapons seemed useless against them. "What about the new species we discovered on the rim?" asked Counselor Thrain, his insectoid mandibles clicking nervously. "The ones from that blue-green world?" "The humans?" Zextar's voice carried a dismissive tone. "They're barely spacefaring, still using chemical rockets and primitive nuclear weapons. They haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel. But they're remarkably aggressive," noted Dr. Kelmry, the Council's chief xenobiologist. Her tentacles writhed as she accessed her datapad. "Our scouts report they've been in almost constant warfare throughout their recorded history. They seem to enjoy fighting," Admiral Zextar snorted. "Primitive savagery won't help against the Devourers. We need advanced technology, not barbarian tactics." The debate continued for hours, but no viable solutions emerged. The Devourers continued their inexorable advance, and the galaxy's most powerful civilizations seemed helpless to stop them. As the session concluded, most representatives felt a growing certainty that their ancient dominion over the stars was coming to an end. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the International Space Defense Initiative, staring at readings that shouldn't exist. The massive radio telescope array had detected something extraordinary, artificial signals from beyond their solar system, and they weren't friendly. "Ma'am, we're picking up what appears to be a large-scale space battle approximately 47 light-years from Earth," reported Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "The energy signatures are off the charts." Sarah moved to the main display, her dark eyes scanning the data streams. At 35, she was the youngest director in ISD's history, chosen for her unconventional thinking and ability to see patterns others missed. What she saw now made her blood run cold. "How many combatants are we talking about?" she asked. "Conservative estimate? Several thousand vessels, each the size of our largest aircraft carriers or bigger. The weapons discharge levels suggest technology far beyond anything we possess." Sarah nodded grimly. Earth had been monitoring extraterrestrial signals for decades, but this was their first indication of active galactic warfare. The implications were staggering. If hostile aliens existed, Earth was woefully unprepared for contact. "Get me General Morrison on the line," she ordered, "and start compiling everything we know about these signals. If there's a war out there, we need to understand what we might be facing." As the hours passed, the picture became clearer and more terrifying. The energy signatures suggested battles of unprecedented scale, with weapons that could crack planets and fleets that numbered in the thousands. Whatever was happening out there made Earth's military capabilities look like Stone Age tools. 3 days later, contact came in a way no one expected. A damaged alien vessel crash-landed in the Australian outback, its hull cracked and systems failing. The pilot, a being that looked like a cross between a dolphin and an octopus, was barely alive when recovery teams reached the site. Dr. Chen arrived at the secure facility within hours, her team of linguists and scientists in tow. The alien, who identified himself as Navigator Pleth of the Aquarian Republic, told them a story that chilled them to the bone. "The Devourers," he whispered through the translation device they'd hastily constructed. "They consume everything. Worlds, species, knowledge, all gone. The Council fleets, broken, scattered. We are the last." Sarah leaned forward, her mind racing. "How many of these Devourers are there?" "Millions of bioships, growing stronger. They learn, adapt. Our weapons, useless. They come this way. This sector will be consumed within your time measurement, perhaps one of your years." The room fell silent. Earth had 1 year before an unstoppable alien force reached their sector of space. Their nuclear arsenals and conventional weapons would be like pebbles thrown at a mountain, but Sarah Chen wasn't ready to give up. As she studied the alien technology salvaged from the crash site, an idea began forming in her mind. The Council species were highly advanced but seemed to think in rigid patterns. They relied on energy weapons and conventional tactics that the Devourers had adapted to counter. Humans, however, had spent millennia perfecting the art of unconventional warfare. "Pleth," she said finally, "tell me everything you know about Devourer biology and tactics. Every detail, no matter how small." The alien looked confused. "You cannot fight them. Your species lacks the technology." Sarah smiled grimly. "Maybe, but we've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We might not have your advanced weapons, but we know a thing or two about winning impossible wars." Over the following weeks, as Pleth recovered and shared his knowledge, Sarah assembled a team of the world's best military strategists, scientists, and engineers. The plan that emerged was audacious, desperate, and completely insane by conventional galactic standards. Earth would not wait for the Devourers to arrive, they would take the fight to them. Using technology reverse-engineered from Pleth's ship, human scientists developed a crude but functional faster-than-light drive. It was dangerous, unreliable, and had a 50% chance of killing anyone who used it. For humans, those were acceptable odds. The first human fleet consisted of hastily converted nuclear submarines, each one jury-rigged with FTL drives and loaded with every nuclear warhead Earth could produce. They weren't elegant vessels like the sleek Council ships. They were crude, ugly, and built for one purpose: delivering maximum destruction. Admiral Rebecca Hayes, a former submarine commander with 30 years of experience, stood on the bridge of the converted USS Virginia as Earth's first interstellar fleet prepared for departure. Around her, a crew of volunteers from every nation on Earth worked with grim determination. They knew they probably wouldn't be coming home. "All vessels report ready," came the voice of Commander Zhang from the bridge crew. The fleet consisted of 50 submarines, each crewed by specialists who had trained for 6 months on alien technology they barely understood. Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the comm from Earth. "Remember, the goal isn't to win a conventional battle. Hit fast, hit hard, and make them think twice about what they're dealing with. Show them that humans don't go quietly into the night." Admiral Hayes nodded. "Understood, Control. See you on the other side." The FTL drives engaged with a sensation like being turned inside out. Reality twisted, and suddenly they were 47 light-years from home, emerging into a star system where the remnants of the Galactic Council fleet were making a desperate last stand against a swarm of bioships that defied description. The Devourer vessels looked like massive cancerous growths crossed with deep-sea creatures, their hulls pulsing with organic tissue and studded with weapon ports that oozed corrosive plasma. They moved with a predatory grace that no artificial ship could match. "Jesus Christ," whispered someone on the comm. "Look at the size of those things!" The largest Devourer bioship was the size of Manhattan, its tentacle-like appendages reaching out to crush the smaller Council vessels. Dozens of the creatures surrounded a dying planet, their feeding tubes extended to drain its core of energy. Admiral Hayes felt her blood turn to ice, but her voice remained steady. "All vessels, this is Admiral Hayes. Remember your training. We're not here to fight fair. We're here to fight human. Execute Plan Gamma." The human fleet split into 3 groups, each taking a different approach vector. Unlike the Council ships that maintained formation and exchanged long-range fire, the submarines dove straight into the swarm, using their small size and erratic movement patterns to avoid the bioship's main weapons. The first nuclear torpedo struck a medium-sized Devourer vessel amidships. The alien creature had never encountered fission weapons before. Its adaptive systems were designed to counter plasma and particle beams, not primitive nuclear explosions that released raw, uncontrolled energy in all directions. The bioship convulsed as radiation poisoning spread through its living hull. Its regenerative systems, designed to repair energy weapon damage, couldn't cope with the cellular disruption caused by radioactive fallout. "Target hit! She's going down!" shouted Lieutenant Peterson from Torpedo Room 1. But Admiral Hayes wasn't focused on individual victories. She was watching the larger tactical picture, and what she saw made her smile grimly. The Devourers were confused. Their hive-mind communication network was buzzing with alarm signals as they tried to understand these new attackers who fought with such reckless abandon. "All vessels close to knife-fighting range. Make them afraid to eat us." The human fleet dove deeper into the swarm, their nuclear weapons tearing holes in bioships that had never been seriously damaged before. But more importantly, they were doing something the highly advanced Council races had never tried. They were making the Devourers question their own invincibility. As the USS Virginia raced between 2 massive bioships, launching nuclear torpedoes at point-blank range, Admiral Hayes realized that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their complete willingness to embrace chaos and destruction in pursuit of victory. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most primitive species could be the most dangerous. The Devourer hive mind reeled in confusion as another of their bioships died screaming in the void. The small metal vessels that had appeared from nowhere were unlike anything in their vast genetic memory. These attackers didn't follow established patterns of galactic warfare. They fought like rabid animals, throwing themselves into certain death with weapons that poisoned their victims on a molecular level. Queenform Zix Thara, the prime consciousness controlling the local swarm, extended her awareness through the hive network. In 3 million years of consumption, spanning countless galaxies, no species had ever caused such disruption with such primitive technology. The nuclear weapons these humans used were crude by galactic standards, but they introduced chaos into biological systems that had never encountered uncontrolled atomic decay. "Adaptation required," she pulsed to her subordinate bioships. "New defensive measures implementing." But adaptation took time, and humans didn't fight by galactic rules that allowed for measured responses. Even as Zixathara's ships began developing radiation resistance, the human submarines were evolving their own tactics. They had realized something that the advanced Council races never understood. Sometimes the best strategy was to have no strategy at all. Admiral Hayes gripped the command rail as the USS Virginia rolled through a debris field of destroyed bioships. Her fleet had lost 18 vessels in the first engagement, but they had accomplished something unprecedented. They had hurt the Devourers badly enough to make them retreat from the system. "Ma'am, "We're receiving transmission from the Council survivors," reported Communications Officer Martinez. "They're requesting permission to come aboard." Hayes nodded. "Grant it, but keep our weapons hot. We don't know who we can trust out here." 20 minutes later, Admiral Zexitar materialized in the Virginia's cramped command center via emergency transport. The massive reptilian warrior looked around the submarine's interior with barely concealed disdain, his nostrils flaring at the smell of human sweat and recycled air. "So you are the humans," he said through his translator. "Your vessels are crude." Admiral Hayes sized up the alien commander. She had dealt with difficult allies before, and she recognized the type: military aristocracy who had never faced a real challenge. "They get the job done, unlike your fancy ships that are floating debris right now." Zexitar's scaled face flushed with anger. "You know nothing of galactic warfare. Your victory was luck, nothing more. One battle does not win a war." "No," Hayes agreed. "But it shows that these things can be killed. Your people have been fighting them like it's a gentleman's war. We fight to win, whatever it takes." The alien admiral's 4 eyes narrowed. "The Council has protocols, established tactics proven over millennia." "And how well have those protocols worked?" Hayes interrupted. "From what I can see, you've been losing for months. Maybe it's time to try something new." Their conversation was interrupted by alarms throughout the ship. On the main screen, space itself seemed to be tearing apart as massive devourer bioships emerged from some kind of organic hyperspace. But these weren't the same vessels they had fought before. They were larger, more heavily armored, and their hulls pulsed with an angry red bioluminescence. "Queen form," whispered Zexitar, his voice filled with fear. "They've sent a queen form against us." Admiral Hayes studied the monster on her screen. The creature was the size of a small moon, its surface covered with weapon pods and launch bays for smaller bioships. Tentacles the width of skyscrapers writhed around its bulk, and at its center was something that looked disturbingly like a massive eye. "What's a queen form?" she asked. "The ultimate evolution of their species. A single queen form can consume an entire star system. Our combined fleets have never successfully engaged one." Zexitar's voice carried the weight of defeat. "We should retreat while we still can." Hayes looked at her crew, seeing the same grim determination in their faces that had carried humanity through every dark hour in their history. "Retreat isn't in our vocabulary. How many people are we trying to save in this system?" "Approximately 4 billion Aquarian civilians on the third planet, plus military personnel," Zexitar replied automatically, then realized what she was implying. "You cannot be serious. Your 50 vessels against a queen form?" 32 vessels, Hayes corrected. "But you're right about one thing. Conventional tactics won't work here. Good thing we don't do conventional." She turned to her communications officer. "Martinez, get me a direct line to Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Minutes later, Dr. Sarah Chen's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, the ISDI command center buzzed with activity as scientists and engineers worked around the clock to support their fleet. "Admiral, we've been monitoring your engagement. Congratulations on proving that the Devourers can be hurt." "Thank you, ma'am. But we've got a bigger problem now. They've sent what the aliens call a queen form against us. It's the size of Luna and apparently unstoppable." Sarah nodded grimly. "We've been analyzing the data from your first battle. The nuclear weapons work because they introduce random cellular damage that overwhelms the bioship's repair systems. A queen form would have much more robust healing capabilities, but there might be a way." "I'm listening. We've identified what appears to be a central nervous system in these creatures. It's heavily protected, but if you could deliver a nuclear payload directly to it..." Sarah paused, consulting her notes. "The radiation would disrupt the neural network controlling the entire organism, but it would require getting inside the creature." Admiral Hayes felt a cold certainty settle in her stomach. "Inside." The queen form appears to have feeding ports large enough for your submarines to enter. You'd have to navigate through its internal systems while fighting off antibodies, find the neural center, and detonate your entire nuclear payload at point-blank range. Zexitar listened to this conversation with growing horror. This is madness. You're talking about flying into the creature's digestive system. No crew would survive such a mission. Hayes looked at him steadily. Admiral, has your species ever heard the phrase acceptable losses? We do not sacrifice our people needlessly, and that's why you're losing. Hayes turned back to the screen. Dr. Chen, what are our odds of success? Optimistically, 5%. Realistically, less than 1%. And our odds if we do nothing? 0%. That queen form will consume this system and move on to the next. Eventually, it will reach Earth. Admiral Hayes nodded. Then we go with the 1% option. Send us everything you have on bioship internal structure. As the data transfer began, Hayes addressed her remaining crews over the fleet communication network. All vessels, this is Admiral Hayes. I'm not going to lie to you. What we're about to attempt is a suicide mission. Anyone who wants to transfer to the Council vessels and evacuate can do so now. No judgment, no questions asked. She waited. Not a single voice requested transfer. In that case, let me tell you the plan. The queen form Zixthara approached the system with confidence. Her massive bulk dwarfed the small metal vessels that had caused such unexpected trouble. She had adapted to their primitive weapons, growing new layers of radiation-resistant tissue and developing point defense systems specifically designed to intercept nuclear projectiles. But as she drew closer, the human fleet did something unprecedented. They split into small groups and began attacking her feeding tentacles with conventional explosives, not nuclear weapons. The damage was minimal, barely scratching her outer hull, but it triggered her feeding response. Massive orifices opened along her underside as digestive acids began flowing in preparation for consumption. The humans were making themselves into food, apparently accepting defeat. Zixthara felt satisfaction pulse through the hive network. That satisfaction turned to alarm when 12 human submarines dove directly into her feeding ports. Inside the queen form's digestive system, Admiral Hayes fought to keep her stomach down as the Virginia was pulled deeper into the creature's body by powerful muscular contractions. The organic tunnel around them pulsed and writhed, trying to crush their hull with digestive pressure. Hull integrity at 60% and falling, reported Chief Engineer Thompson. These stomach acids are eating through our armor. Time to target? 47 minutes to the neural center, assuming we survive the immune response. As if summoned by his words, the tunnel ahead began sprouting massive white cells that moved like jellyfish through the acidic environment. The queen form's antibodies were larger than fighter jets and moved with predatory intelligence. All ahead full, Hayes ordered, and prep the torpedo tubes. Time to introduce this thing's immune system to human stubbornness. The next 30 minutes were the most hellish experience in naval warfare history. The submarines fought their way through a living nightmare of digestive acids, crushing muscular walls, and antibodies that tried to dissolve them with chemical weapons. Half the fleet was lost in the journey, their crews dying in agony as alien acids ate through their hulls. But 8 submarines survived to reach the neural center, and what they found there defied description. It was a vast organic cathedral filled with pulsing brain tissue and neural fibers that carried the queen form's consciousness. Electrical storms played across its surface as the creature's mind processed information from across her body. Target acquired, Hayes said quietly. All vessels, arm nuclear payloads. Full spread. Zextar's voice crackled over the communications system from his ship in orbit. Admiral Hayes, you've done enough. Your sacrifice will be remembered. We can evacuate now. Negative, Hayes replied. We didn't come this far to run away at the finish line. Besides, this thing killed a lot of good people today. Time to return the favor. The 8 submarines fired their entire nuclear arsenal directly into the Queen Form's brain tissue. 43 nuclear warheads detonated simultaneously inside the creature's nervous system, releasing more radiation than the organic neural networks could possibly absorb or adapt to. Queen Form Zixathara's death scream echoed across multiple dimensions as her consciousness was obliterated by nuclear fire. 3 million years of accumulated knowledge and genetic memory vanished in an instant of atomic fury. Her massive body convulsed once, then went limp, drifting dead in space. Across the galaxy, the Devourer hive mind felt the death of a Queen Form for the first time in their existence. The psychological impact was devastating. If humans could kill a Queen Form with primitive nuclear weapons, what else might these insane creatures be capable of? For the first time in their long history of consumption, the Devourers felt something they had never experienced before: fear. In the wreckage of the Queen Form's neural center, Admiral Rebecca Hayes smiled as her ship's hull finally gave way to the acidic environment. She had kept her promise to Dr. Chen. They had shown the galaxy that humans don't go quietly into the night. But more importantly, they had proven that sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the most advanced one. It's the one crazy enough to fly into hell itself just to drag the devil down with them. 3 months after the destruction of Queen Form Zixathara, the Devourer advance had stalled for the first time in their recorded history. Across their hive network, confusion and uncertainty spread like a virus. The death of a Queen Form had been thought impossible. These apex predators were the pinnacle of their biological evolution, perfect killing machines refined over millions of years. But the humans had killed one with metal tubes and primitive atomic weapons. In the deepest reaches of Devourer space, the High Queens convened an emergency conclave. These ancient beings, each older than most star systems, had witnessed the rise and fall of countless galactic civilizations. Nothing in their vast experience had prepared them for humanity. "Show us again," commanded High Queen Mordeth, her consciousness a writhing mass of dark intelligence that spanned multiple dimensions. Around her, 7 other High Queens shared their collective memory of the Virginia's impossible mission. The tactical data was clear but incomprehensible. The humans had accepted casualty rates that would have broken any civilized species. They had flown deliberately into certain death, not because they were desperate, but because they calculated it was their best option for victory. Their leadership had sent volunteers on suicide missions, and the volunteers had actually volunteered. Their behavioral patterns contradict all known evolutionary psychology, pulsed High Queen Veltara. No species develops intelligence while maintaining such self-destructive aggression. Yet they did, Mordeth replied, and now they represent an unknown variable in our expansion plans. Through their vast network, the High Queens could sense their subordinate swarms hesitating. The death of Zixathara had introduced something new into the Devourer collective: doubt. For the first time in eons, they were questioning whether consumption was truly inevitable. Meanwhile, in the liberated Aquarian system, an unprecedented alliance was taking shape. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of New Geneva Station, a hastily constructed space platform that served as headquarters for Earth's expanding military presence. Around her, human technicians worked alongside engineers from a dozen alien species, creating hybrid technologies that neither side could have developed alone. "The production lines are exceeding expectations," reported Colonel Martinez, now serving as liaison between Earth Command and the various alien resistance movements. "We're turning out modified nuclear torpedoes at 3 times the projected rate." Sarah nodded, studying the holographic display that showed human shipyards throughout the solar system working at maximum capacity. Earth had committed everything to this war. Every major city had been converted to military production. Every university focused on weapons research. Every nation united under a single command structure. What about recruitment for the new fleet? That's not a problem, Martinez said with a wry smile. We have more volunteers than ships. Apparently word has spread about Admiral Hayes and her crew. Every navy on Earth wants their chance to take a shot at the Devourers. Sarah wasn't surprised. Humanity had always been at its best when facing impossible odds. The destruction of the Virginia had become legendary. Their sacrifice had not only saved 4 billion Aquarian lives, but had proven that humans could stand against cosmic horror and win. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from Admiral Zextar," announced the communications technician. The alien admiral materialized on the main screen, but he looked different from their first meeting. The arrogance and condescension were gone, replaced by something Sarah had never expected to see from a member of the galactic elite: respect. "Dr. Chen, I have news from the Council. We've received surrenders from 17 Devourer swarms in the Outer Rim. They're requesting terms." Sarah blinked in surprise. "Surrenders? From the Devourers? It appears that your species' reputation has spread throughout their hive network. Several swarm leaders are claiming that continued expansion toward human space is biologically inadvisable. They're withdrawing from contested systems." This was beyond anything Sarah had dared hope for. "How many systems are we talking about?" "Over 300. Dr. Chen, your people have done something that 3,000 years of galactic civilization could not accomplish. You've made the Devourers afraid." But Sarah knew that fear alone wouldn't end the war. The Devourers were retreating, yes, but they were also adapting. Intelligence reports suggested they were developing new bioships specifically designed to counter human tactics. The next phase of the conflict would be even deadlier. "Admiral, we need to discuss long-term strategy. The Devourers are regrouping, and when they return, they'll be ready for our current methods." Zexatar nodded grimly. "The High Queens are mobilizing their deep space reserves. Our sources suggest they're preparing something called a cleansing wave, a massive coordinated assault designed to sterilize entire sectors." Sarah felt ice form in her veins. "How massive?" "Conservative estimates suggest over 10,000 bioships, including multiple queen forms and at least 2 high queens." The command center fell silent. Earth's entire fleet consisted of barely 200 vessels, most of them converted civilian ships armed with nuclear weapons. Against 10,000 bioships, conventional tactics would be suicide, but Sarah Chen hadn't become humanity's military leader by thinking conventionally. "Get me a secure line to the Prometheus project," she ordered. 6 weeks later, in a classified facility hidden beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. James Patterson made final adjustments to humanity's most desperate gambit. The Prometheus device was the culmination of human engineering combined with alien technology, a weapon that even Sarah Chen wasn't entirely sure was sane to use. "Final systems check complete," Patterson announced to his team. "Theoretical yield is significant." Significant was an understatement. The Prometheus device was essentially a weaponized black hole generator, capable of creating artificial singularities that would consume everything within several light years. It was a doomsday weapon in the truest sense. Once activated, it couldn't be stopped or controlled. "Any word from the forward scouts?" asked Dr. Janet Willis, the project's senior physicist. "Admiral Thompson's fleet detected the leading edge of the cleansing wave approximately 72 hours out from the Sol system," Patterson replied. "Devourer forces number in excess of 12,000 vessels." The room fell quiet. Everyone understood what those numbers meant. Earth's defenses, even reinforced by allied alien ships, couldn't stop a force that size. The only option was to make the cost of victory so high that the Devourers would question whether Earth was worth taking. Meanwhile, in deep space beyond Pluto's orbit, Admiral David Thompson commanded Earth's combined fleet from the bridge of the UES Defiant, humanity's first purpose-built interstellar warship. Around him, 200 human vessels waited alongside nearly 1,000 ships from 17 different alien species. It was the largest fleet in galactic history, but it would still be vastly outnumbered. "Enemy contacts on long-range sensors," reported Commander Singh. "Jesus Christ, there are so many of them." On the main screen, space itself seemed to darken as the Devourer cleansing wave approached. Bioships of every size imaginable filled the void, from fighter-sized interceptors to continent-sized dreadnoughts. At the center of the formation were the High Queens, massive entities that dwarfed even queen forms. "All fleet vessels, this is Admiral Thompson," he announced over the open channel. "Today, we stand between Earth and the destruction of everything we've ever known or loved. The enemy outnumbers us 6-1, and they're probably right to be confident." He paused, looking around the bridge at faces that showed fear but no hint of surrender. But they've made one crucial mistake. They're fighting humans, and humans have never met a hopeless situation we wouldn't take a swing at. All ships, engage at will. Make them pay for every meter of space. The battle that followed redefined the concept of space warfare. Human ships dove into the Devourer formation like angry hornets, their nuclear weapons tearing holes in bioship formations, while alien allies provided covering fire with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. But the numbers were overwhelming. For every Devourer ship destroyed, 3 more took its place. Human vessels died by the dozens, their crews fighting to the last breath as alien acids ate through their hulls. High Queen Mordeth watched the battle with ancient satisfaction. The humans were brave, she acknowledged, but bravery meant nothing against such overwhelming force. Soon their homeworld would be consumed, and this troublesome species would become nothing more than genetic material for the hive. That satisfaction turned to alarm when her sensors detected something unprecedented, a massive energy buildup near Earth itself. The humans weren't just fighting a delaying action, they were preparing something. "What is that emission signature?" she pulsed to her subordinates. Before anyone could answer, space-time itself began to warp around Earth. A point of absolute darkness appeared near the moon, growing rapidly as it consumed light, matter, and even the quantum foam of empty space. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the Prometheus control room, her hand hovering over the final activation switch. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the battle raging in space above Earth. Human and alien ships were dying by the hundreds, but they were buying precious time for the weapon to charge. "Singularity formation at 96%, announced Patterson. "We're past the point of no return." Sarah nodded. Once activated, the artificial black hole would consume everything within 3 light years before finally evaporating due to Hawking radiation. Earth would survive, barely, but the Sol system would be fundamentally changed. It was victory at an almost unthinkable cost. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from the Devourer fleet," reported the communications officer. "They're requesting to speak with you directly." Sarah raised an eyebrow. In 3 months of warfare, the Devourers had never attempted direct communication with humans. "Put them through." High Queen Mordeth's voice filled the control room, speaking through a hastily established translation protocol. "Human leader Sarah Chen, we acknowledge your weapon. Its power is impressive. Impressive enough to get your attention, apparently. You would destroy your own star system to deny us victory?" Sarah smiled grimly. "Lady, we've been willing to destroy our own planet for resources since we invented gunpowder. Scorched Earth isn't a new concept for us." There was a long pause before Mordeth spoke again. "Your species is unprecedented. In 3 million years of expansion, we have never encountered beings willing to embrace such absolute destruction in pursuit of tactical advantage. Then you haven't been paying attention to human history. We propose cessation of hostilities." Sarah blinked in surprise. The Devourers were offering to negotiate after 3 million years of consuming everything in their path. I'm listening. Human space will be designated off-limits to Devourer expansion. Your species will be granted full territorial sovereignty over any systems you choose to claim. In exchange, you will not deploy weapons of mass galactic destruction. Sarah looked around the control room, seeing the same shocked expression on every face. The most feared predatory species in galactic history was backing down from a confrontation with humanity. What guarantee do we have that you'll honor such an agreement? The same guarantee we have that you will not create more singularity weapons, Mordeth replied. Mutual annihilation is unprofitable for all parties involved. Sarah Chen made the decision that would reshape galactic civilization. Very well, but understand this. Humanity doesn't make empty threats. Cross us again, and we'll turn every star system into a battleground until one of us is extinct. Acknowledged, we will withdraw to the galactic rim. Human space shall remain unconsumed. As the Devourer fleet began its unprecedented retreat, Admiral Thompson found himself commanding a victory that no one had dared hope for. The most advanced species in the galaxy had been defeated not by superior technology, but by humanity's complete willingness to embrace destruction if it meant protecting what they loved. 3 months later, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the Reformed Galactic Council as Earth's first official representative. The alien delegates looked at her with a mixture of awe, fear, and grudging respect. Humanity had done the impossible. They had forced the Devourers to the negotiating table. The Council recognizes humanity as a sovereign species, announced Admiral Zextar, now serving as the Council's military coordinator. Full voting rights and territorial claims are hereby granted. Sarah nodded diplomatically, but inside she was smiling. Earth had gone from an unknown primitive world to a major galactic power in less than a year, and they had done it by being exactly what they had always been: stubborn, aggressive, and absolutely unwilling to quit. As she left the council chambers, Sarah reflected on humanity's place in the galaxy. They were surrounded by species with technology that made Earth's greatest achievements look like Stone Age tools, but they had something those advanced civilizations had lost somewhere in their millions of years of evolution: the absolute refusal to accept defeat, no matter how hopeless the odds. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about assuming that advanced always meant superior. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy wasn't the one with the best weapons. It was the one crazy enough to blow up their own star system just to make a point. Earth's children would carry that lesson with them as they spread among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.